Good day to everyone. Thank you so much for coming and viewing this presentation. Today we are going to be focusing to the topic of basics of nutrition. What is nutrition? You may ask, and you have heard maybe people saying, how do I know that my food is nutritious? Do we know the nutrients? Why do we eat? You may have asked yourself questions like this. And I would like actually to keep other questions in your mind. For example, have you ever wondered why God did not create us with the ability to just walk and absorb nutrients in our skins? Do you believe in God? Do you believe that God is powerful? If you do so, then let me ask you a question. Why didn't God created you and me just with the ability of absorbing nutrients just by walking? Why do we need to eat? To get our nutrients. Have you ever thought about these things? Even about money. Do you know how much money is spent? Or about energy. Do you know how much energy is spent into looking for food? Why isn't it that we were created such a way? Would it be easier just to walk around and absorb nutrients from the environment? Do you think God could have done it? Is He powerful enough to do it? Then if He could have and He didn't, why He didn't? Have you ever thought about that? Then if you think about the nutrients, why do we have three major nutrients? Macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. What is the importance of them? What comes to your mind if you are thinking in the spiritual realm? Is there any question that comes to you, to your mind, when you think about the nutrients that you are eating in your body? Now think about this. When you eat, what is the food that you eat going to be? Is it going to be part of you? Is it going to benefit you? Yes, of course. We eat. We enjoy eating. Yes or no? We do enjoy eating. And it's a blessing that God gave us the opportunity to enjoy eating so we can have family time, we can have good time with others, friends also. We use eating even for big events, yes or no? We enjoy eating. That's not a question. We know that we do. So thank God for giving us the opportunity to enjoy the food. But I want you also to think that there is more behind the food than what we think. There is gospel behind it. There is Bible, there is religion in the food that we eat. If you think about the plants, how they grow, is there any resemblance? Is there anything in the plant growing that helps us to think about God? Of course. Every seed, when it's sprouting, is an example of a baptism of a new life, of a person in conversion. What about food? Does it bring to your mind something spiritual when you think about carbohydrates, for example? When you think about fats? All right, I'll leave it there because I just want to stir up some thoughts about this. And I hope other people can bring up more information and knowledge about this topic ahead of time. Nutrients. What are the nutrients that we have? The nutrients that we have basically are two groups, are the macronutrients and the micronutrients. The macronutrients is divided basically in three. We have the carbohydrates, we have the lipids, and we have the proteins. In the micronutrients group, we have the vitamins and we have the minerals. Two main groups, don't forget, because we will ask you later about it. Macronutrients and micronutrients. Now let's think about this. Energy. Which one will give you energy? Will the micronutrients give you energy or the macronutrients give you energy? We know that the energy is measured by calories. Calories or kilocalories is what gives us energy. Therefore, the one that gives us the calories is the one that will give us the energy. If you think about vitamins and minerals, there is no calories in vitamins and minerals. Can you get energy then from vitamins and minerals? No. Theoretically speaking, the answer is no. And I say theoretically speaking because practically speaking, sometimes we cannot say that. You may have heard so old-time couples, folks, may be saying, oh, give some vitamins and minerals to that child because he's weak. He needs energy, and you give them vitamins and minerals. Why do they say that? Why do they used to say that? And it's, in reality, theoretically speaking, it's not true. Well, there is a truth behind that we have to clarify, and I will take a time to explain that later. So let's talk about the macronutrients first. The macronutrients, they give us calories. They are the ones who need required enzymes for the digestion in our bodies, in the mouth, in the stomach, in the intestine, and we'll see that in details later. So definitely the carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins are the ones that will give us the energy because they are the ones who give us the calories. How are the carbohydrates, lipids, or fats and proteins made? And how do they function? And where are they digested? Simple principles that I would like to teach you today in this presentation. Let's start with the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, as you know, is like rice, oats, right? Grains, basically, even corn, potatoes, cassava. All those are carbohydrates. What is forming carbohydrates? Carbohydrate is made of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. If they are made of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, we have to clarify and separate them from the fats because it's the same content, but we will see that when we get to the fats. What are they for? Well, we know that when you eat carbohydrates, you are putting energy, gasoline kind of, in your body. You have enough energy for working, performing daily. We use them also for forming, constructing, building things in our body. Yes. For example, when we talk about the Rh molecule that gives us the negative or positive characteristic of the blood, what is that? It is basically a carbohydrate molecule in the blood. Therefore, we use it for building things. Yes. Now, what about the storage? Can we store carbohydrates? Yes, we can store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen in the liver and the muscles. And what about when we have too much? Oh, those can even turn into fat, and we can store them also. That's what people call in the Philippines the bilbil, right? And sometimes you can put on weight. That's because you are eating too much carbohydrates, maybe, more than what you really need for your requirements daily. So what is the digestion of the carbohydrates? Where is it done? The carbohydrates is mainly done in the mouth and in the duodenum. Duodenum is the first portion of the intestine, the small intestine. You know that we have two intestines. We have the small and the large intestine. The small intestine has three portions. It's divided into the duodenum, which is the C-shaped first portion of the small intestine. Then we have the jejunum, which is the second section, which will be working for the absorption of nutrients, and the ileum, which is the third part of the small intestine. In the duodenum, which is the C-shaped first portion of the small intestine, is where we have most of the digestion of food, especially carbohydrates and proteins and fats. Therefore, we know that carbohydrates are digested by the amylase enzyme in the saliva in the mouth, and the amylase and other enzymes in the duodenum, the C-shaped first portion of the small intestine. Now let's talk about the lipids or fats. The lipids or fat is the second in the group of macronutrients that gives us energy, and is made of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, the same as I said before in the carbohydrates. But there is a difference between the carbohydrates and the fats or lipids, even though it's the same content. The difference is in the packing of it. I give you an example. If you have metal and you are like a wire, and you have it straight, that will be probably a carbohydrate. But let's say that you roll it and 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 roll it, and you make like a spring. That's probably a fat or a lipid. The way it's packed is a little different from the carbohydrate than the fats. The way fats are packed, folded, it is so tight that the energy content is greater, is bigger. Therefore, you will get more energy when you eat fats than when you eat carbohydrates. The reason why people say, oh, don't eat so much fat. Don't eat so much of that because you will get fatter. There's more energy into it, more calories, especially when you talk about calories content in food. So it's the same content. Now what about the functions? Can we use fats for energy? Yes, they do. We can use them for energy. What about for building up things? Sure, we can use fat for building. For example, when a woman is going through the periods of the month where the hormones are, different heights, different amounts, estrogen is important for the formation of some characteristics in the woman and the functions of the woman of the moment. But estrogen is a fat content hormone. So we make that from fats. What about the molecules in the membrane of the cells? We do have a lot of fat in the cell membrane, cholesterol even in the cell membrane. So we can use fat for building many things in our body. They are essential for our body. What about the storage? Can we store lipids or fats? Yes, we can. That's exactly what we do when we have bil, right? We have more storage of fat. Therefore, we can store, we can make bil, we can make fat in our body by eating high content of carbohydrates or high content of fat. The higher the content, the more we will have. That's why you have to be careful with the amount of those things. So where is the digestion of the fats or lipids? The digestion of fats or lipids are mainly done in the C-shaped first portion of the small intestine. And then we will use from the pancreas and from the gallbladder the liquids that will mix together, both pipes, the one pipe coming from the pancreas and one pipe coming from the gallbladder. They will unite and they will dump into the duodenum so they can get the liquids, the lipase and the bile. The lipase is the enzyme that comes from the pancreas, and the bile is the one coming from the gallbladder. So when they mix together and go into the C-shaped duodenum, the food is there and the digestion of fats happens. Give me some examples of fat. Maybe avocados, gata or coconut, peanuts, all of them are fats, or even seeds like flaxseed. Now let's talk about protein. Protein, what is the formation? What makes protein? Protein is made of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Looks like the same. Yes, but there's a little difference. There's a fourth molecule in the protein, which is which? Do you know? Nitrogen. So what is the difference between the proteins and the other two? Because the other two, carbohydrates and lipids, are the same basically in the formation. Nitrogen is the difference, and there is a peculiar things about nitrogen. Nitrogen is toxic. Therefore, nitrogen should not be floating around in our bodies, cannot be free. It must be bound, used, or otherwise disposed. So the question is, what is the function of protein? Can we use it for energy? Yes, we can. We can use proteins for energy. When you don't have carbohydrates, when you don't have fats, you may use proteins for energy, especially in periods of starvation, long-term fasting. You may need to use even your proteins to sustain your life. So what about building things in our body with the proteins? Do we use them for building? Yes. We use the muscles. We build muscle with proteins. We build our nails with protein, our hair. Many parts of our body require proteins. Even when we talk about cholesterol, we have the LDL, the HDL, all these molecules that carry cholesterol in our bodies. And what are they? LDL, low density lipoprotein. Lipoprotein, meaning it's a portion of it that is a protein molecule. Yes. So we build things. We build bones, we build muscle, we build hair, nails, many parts of our body. We need protein, but how much do we need? We'll talk about that in another presentation by God's grace. But the question that is more important about protein is this. Can we store proteins? No. We said that already. Nitrogen is different in the proteins and is toxic. We cannot store it. So what is the problem? The problem is, if you eat too much, your body has to get rid of it. You cannot store it. So your body will have more work in getting rid of the excess of protein if you eat too much. So it comes a very important situation here. We must be careful with the amount of protein we take in. Yes, we do need protein, but not excessive amount of it. Where is the digestion of the proteins? The proteins are digested basically in the stomach by the hydrochloric acid that is made in the stomach. And we make the rest of the digestion of the proteins in the duodenum, because the pancreas secretes by the Willis duct another molecule that is called protease, which is an enzyme for the digestion of proteins. The hydrochloric acid in the stomach, first part, then after that, when the food is in the duodenum, the C-shaped first portion of the small intestine, then you have the rest of the digestion of the protein. Now that you know how the energy is liberated from the three main molecules, carbohydrates, lipids, fats, or proteins, we go for another section. Now we're going to change here. I'm going to go through the topic of junk food. What is junk food? Well, junk food comes to your mind, these fast food restaurants, or maybe these little packages. Yes, those are the junk food. Well, why do we call them junk food? Now let me be clear with this. The reason I bring this information is the enemy, Satan, has been very clever trying to deceive us and even bring in our home sometimes things that we may consider good and right, yet they are junk food in our table. So, sadly to say, but truth, you will discover today that many times Satan has been successful in bringing in our homes food that is junk food, and you may not have wanted that, yet it is in our homes. So let's define what junk food is so we can see. And beside that, we will see what are the problems that they will bring to our bodies. So let's define junk food. Junk food by the dictionary says food that has low nutritional value. Now you remember now that at the beginning of the presentation I asked you if you had questioned yourself before on what is nutrition. How can we measure the nutrition of our food? Now you see the definition here that says that junk food has a low nutritional value. So who can tell me what is low nutrition? What is good nutrition? How can you measure nutrition? What measure nutrition in the food? Do you know? All right, you don't have to know it. Many of you may not know it, but we will try to define it. I'm not going to answer the question now. I will continue with the junk food definitions, and then after we will see how the junk food, the low nutritional value will come up by itself. So the junk food definition says, typically produced in the form of packaged snacks needing little or no preparation. I repeat, food that has low nutritional value, typically produced in the form of packaged snacks needing little or no preparation. That's the first definition. The second definition that I have for you is this one. The unhealthy fats tend to come from fast foods that are high in fat and low in nutrition. Wait a minute. What is that saying there? If it is saying that is it high in fat and low in nutrition, what do we take from the definition? If it's low in nutrition and is high in fat, conclusion, fat does not measure the nutrition of the food. Therefore, If I have a high fat content in a food, which may be needed, you may need fat, yes, we need some fat, but the amount of fat will not say that the food is nutrition or is not nutritious. So what is it that makes a food nutritious? Okay, one thing clear, fat does not measure nutrition. Okay, clear. I read the definition again. The unhealthy fats tend to come from fast food that are high in fat and low in nutrition. Now let's see the definition of malnutrition. Why? Because obesity is not nutrition. Huh? Did you hear that? Obesity is not nutrition. Why do I say that? Well, because many times we have the misconception when you see a chubby baby, even though we like to do that, we enjoy to see a chubby baby because we think that because he's fat, he is nutritionally well. But that's not true. I have many, many friends that when they come to me fat, I can prove to them that they are not nutritionally well. They are malnourished. Do we have such a thing? Yes. When you think about malnutrition, you normally think about what? Maybe a skinny boy from some far country with a big belly, and that's malnourished. But what about a person fat? Can they be malnourished too? Yes. So what is nutrition? How can you measure the nutrition of your food? And how can you tell if you are malnourished or not? What is nutrition? Okay, let's define malnutrition so we can keep discovering new things that we did not know before. Malnutrition is a lack of proper nutrition caused by what? Number one, not having enough food to eat. That's one cause. Second, not eating enough of the right things. Yes, you can have plenty of food, but if you have wrong choices, you may not be nutritionally well. And the third cause of malnutrition, being unable to use the food that we eat. Have you ever thought maybe that somebody is eating a big plate full of many good things that you may consider nutritious, and yet they are not feeling great? Because sometimes maybe your intestine is inflamed, maybe something is wrong with your digestive system, maybe you are not digesting the food properly. So at the end, the problem is you may have good food, you may have even nutritious food, yet you don't get what you need because you are unable to do the digestion properly. What if your intestines are so inflamed that when the food is going through it, you cannot absorb the nutrients? There is a malabsorption process because of the inflammation of the intestines. So malnutrition can come from the three main points: not having enough to eat, not eating enough of the right things, or being unable to absorb the nutrients. Poor choices. Last definition of junk food. Junk food generally refers to food that contributes lots of calories but little nutritional value. This definition will clarify the last portion, and it will give us the definition of nutrition. Now pay attention to this. If the definition is saying that brings in lots of calories, so junk food brings lots of calories, then the question is, where do we get calories? You remember we get calories from carbohydrates, from lipids or fats, and from proteins. We do not get calories from vitamins and minerals in the micronutrients. Therefore, what we know is that junk food is high carbohydrate, high lipids or fats, high protein, no or very little nutrition, meaning By subtraction, no vitamins and minerals. Conclusion: how can you measure the nutrition of the food? By measuring the amount of vitamins and minerals that the food has. A plate of food that you eat is nutritionally valuable because it has a high content of vitamins and minerals. You see now? We have discovered the treasure. How can you measure if your food is nutritionally well or high in nutrition? Because it has high vitamin and minerals content. Knowing that the food has high calories, high fat, high lipids, high carbohydrates, and high protein does not make your food nutritious. Now think about it. What are the carbohydrates? What are the lipids? And what are the proteins? You may think about carbohydrates with the rice, the oats, and so on. You may think about the fats in avocados and peanuts and all that. You may think about the proteins with the beans and the nuts and the seeds. Eating a lot of that will not make your food nutritious. So what makes your food nutritious? When you have high vitamins and minerals food or inside of it. Therefore, any processing, any system that makes your food with less vitamins and minerals, it is considered what? Junk food. Now what we have to discover is, where do we get those vitamins and minerals that we need? All right. Now you remember that at the beginning we talk about why old people, grandparents maybe, used to say, you may have heard them saying, give them some vitamins and minerals because the child is weak. Even though we know that calories do not come from vitamins and minerals, there is a little truth into what they said or they used to say. Why? Just think about that. Remember that we can think about carbohydrates, lipids and fats or protein as a gasoline. It's the energy boosting, gives you the energy. Now think about a car. Imagine that I have a car and I think my car doesn't have enough space for gasoline. Maybe have one tank, that's any car. But I think I have to go through a long period of time walking and I need extra gasoline. What will I do? Maybe you think, oh, I want build another tank. Maybe you hook another tank at the back. You put a pipe and you hook the one tank with the other one. And one day you may say, no, 2 tanks is not enough. Now think about that. Gasoline, fats, build fat in our bodies. Is it the best just to build more fats in our body for the future, like reserve, we may say? Is it really good to have reserve, plenty of fat in our body? What is the kind of fat that is good? Let's say that I build up 5 tanks of gasoline in the car. Very fat person. I have friends coming to me with 500 pounds, 531 one case one time. Is that good? No, we know that it's not. But let's say that this car that I have, today, tonight, somebody comes and gets the battery out of the car. Tomorrow I wake up and I go and put the key into the car and I try to switch on the car, and guess what happened? Can I turn it on? No. Why? Somebody took the battery. So, but I have 5 tanks of gasoline. Plenty of energy. Plenty of gasoline, plenty of bill, very fat. But if I don't have the battery, can I run the car? No. So it doesn't matter how much fat I have, how much carbohydrates, how much rice I eat, how much peanuts I eat. I will get fat. Yes, but are you nutritionally well? Do you have the battery to run the car? If you don't, then you're not healthy. It doesn't matter how much fat we can have. If fat is not properly well, and if we don't have the battery, we cannot run the car. So all people used to say, give them some vitamins and minerals to the child because he's weak. The point is, It's not difficult to find carbohydrates. It is not difficult to find lipids and proteins. It is not difficult to find proteins in our diet. The problem always have been it is hard to put in our bodies vitamins and minerals. We get into a process where we are lacking vitamins and minerals. So as I said before, we are going to discover today that many times in our tables we have been eating junk food that we did not know. Why? Let's see. In the diagram of Dr. Furman's micronutrients scores, and remember, micronutrients are the amounts of vitamins and minerals, we can see which are the elements that have the higher nutritional content. And if we see the graphic in detail, you have a left side and a right side. On the left side, we have the first group, which is the raw leafy green vegetables with 100% nutrition. Meaning, if I think about Philippines with a alugbati, for example, a kind of a spinach, and I take leaves of spinach and I see them, I will ask, for example, how much protein do I get from that? Protein? Some people may say none. There is some, but very small amount. So small, yes. What about fats? Can I get some fat from that leaf? No, very small amount. What about carbohydrates? From spinach, from alugbatis? Very small amount. But think about the micronutrients group, vitamins and minerals. Vitamins and minerals in an alugbati is 100%, meaning it has mostly vitamins and minerals, nothing else. That's the way we see it. So if we measure the amount of vitamins and minerals in alugbati, it's the highest. Green leafy vegetables are the higher vitamin and mineral content. Question: do we eat plenty of it? You see, now we discover the truth. Why? Because in our diet, we have not been accustomed, trained to eat these things in a big form. We have trained ourselves in the society to eat very little amount of this. Very high amount of the carbohydrates, very high amount of the fat, very high amount of the proteins, but the vitamins and minerals are very low. So when we consider the food that we are eating in our tables, we can see that it's very low in nutritional content. What is the next group? The next group is the solid green vegetables with a 97%. And the next group is the non-green, non-starchy vegetables with a 50%. The next group is the beans, legumes with a 48% of nutrition, meaning vitamins and minerals is 48%. Fresh fruit is 45%, starchy vegetable 35%, whole grains like unpolished rice is 22%. Vitamins and mineral content 22%. Raw nuts and seeds is 20%. Fish is 15%. Fat-free dairy is 13%. Wild meat and fowl is 11%. Eggs is 11%. Red meat is 8%. Full-fat dairy is 4%. Cheese is 3%. Refined grains like white rice, white grains for white wheat for tinapay, for bread, 2%. Refined oil is 1%. And refined sweets that are baked in the bakeries is 0%. So the point is, look at the graphic again. Are you eating from the left side of the graphic a lot, or from the right side of the graphic? So you see, the more you eat from the left side, the healthier you will be. The more you eat from the right side, the unhealthier you will be. If you eat more food from the left side of the graphic, you are not eating junk food. When you eat more of the right side of the graphic, you are eating junk food. Now I explain it this way so it's very clear. You may have a motorcycle that is new, just brand new. You put the key into it and you run it today. Tomorrow, gasoline is low, so you go to the gas station, you put energy gasoline, you put energy, which means carbohydrates, rice, oats, potatoes, cassava, yes. You may put some fat, yes, because it's energy still. Some avocado, some gata, oil, and you may put some fat, I mean some protein. Yes, beans, meat, egg, cheese, milk, all those proteins, very high content. But what about vitamins and minerals? Have you counted the vitamins and mineral content of the food you are eating? If that is low, think about the motorcycle again. You put gasoline tomorrow. You put gasoline the next week. You put gasoline the next month. You run that motorcycle for maybe 8 months. And one day that motorcycle burns because you never changed the oil. That was a problem, no? Of course. It's the same way in our bodies. We can eat white rice today and we will not die today. We can eat tomorrow other refined grains, especially like white bread. We can eat refined oils. We can eat refined proteins, even isolated proteins, which are more famous in the market nowadays. We can eat all that and not die today. But the more we eat them, the worse it will be. The enemy knows that he will get us and our families by leading us into this tastier food, but less healthier. So we go to the problem of our growing up situation. We have learned maybe to eat a big plate, mountains of rice, or maybe other carbohydrates, and very little of lettuce, for example, and a piece of tomato. What is the nutritional content of that food, that plate? Okay, you may wonder, for example, the sugar consumption in the United States, how much sugar we are consuming today. The sugar consumption in the United States, according to the nutritional data census, in 1822, it was 8.9 pounds. You can see it in the graphic. And in the 1900s, it was 65.3 pounds per person per year. It was an increase from 8 to 65. In 1977, the increase was to 128 pounds of sugar per person per year. And in 1996, it was 147 pounds per person per year. Now, what was the beginning of the statistics? 1822? 8 pounds per person per year. And in 1996, 147. That means the consumption at that year, 1996, it was 47 teaspoons of sugar per person per day, which is an equivalent of 90 feet of sugar cane chewing in one day. If I give you sugar cane, the stalks, and I give them to you 90 feet, you think you can peel them off today and get them all and chew them all? You think you can do that? 90 feet. But easily, every average person in the US is consuming 47 teaspoons of sugar per year. Per day, actually. So the idea is, what will be the consumption today, 2018? Whoa, we cannot measure, but it's more than that. So the idea is we are wasting more nutrients in our body. We are not getting the nutrients we need. Our food is not nutritionally balanced. It is malnourished. And we will be malnourished if we continue this way. There is a webpage that I consider and I recommend. It's called the selfnutritiondata.com. Selfnutritiondata.com. In that place, you can put all the names of food you can think of. You can put spinach, you can put bread, you can put peanut butter, you can put honey, you can put garlic, you can put spinach, anything you want. And you could see the nutrition of it, you can see the filling capacity of it, the glycemic index of it, the inflammatory factors of it. Let me give you an example. If you're talking about autoimmune disease patients, honey. Honey, 1 cup of honey will be in the factor of inflammation in the negative form, meaning is inflammatory. Anything in the positive form, it is anti-inflammatory. In this case, honey is 1,262 negative, meaning is very inflammatory. A patient with an autoimmune disease, a person with an autoimmune disease should not be taking honey because it will increase the inflammation process in the body. So what about garlic, for example, if we think about inflammatory process? If we think about garlic in the graphic of garlic, in the inflammatory factor, it is a positive factor, meaning it is anti-inflammatory, and it is 4,863 anti-inflammatory factor. Therefore, it is actually better to consume more garlic than to consume honey. Now, I'm not saying to eat only garlic. What I'm saying is it is more anti-inflammatory eating garlics than to eat honey all the time. If we think about the nutritional content and also the way the honey affects our filling capacity or the nutrition of our body, we can see in the graphic the nutrition is going way down in the graphic and the filling capacity is also going down. If we think about garlic or spinach, we will see that it is higher in the nutritional filling and nutritional content. There are other elements of food that you may want to discover by going into this web page. And for example, spinach, if you see the graphic, it is very high in the nutritional filling up and nutrition content. Inflammatory factor is 78 positive, which is good anti-inflammatory. It has a very good nutritional content. And when you see the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals, if you see the amino acid score, it has all the 8 essential amino acids we need, and it has a 119 amino acid content score. So spinach is actually very healthy in terms of nutrition. So we come to the end of this presentation. Basics of nutrition. Where can we find nutritious food? Don't forget, eat more vitamins and more minerals. Where are the vitamins and minerals mainly? Mainly in fruits and vegetables. Mainly. So the more vegetables you eat, the healthier you will be. The more fruits you eat, the healthier you will be. And when you are deciding what to eat in a plate, try to be more balanced. I am not saying you have to eat only spinach for a whole day. The idea is we have to go into a custom of eating more of these things than to eating rice and beans. We have the tendency to go for these tastier things and have no power to decide to eat the nutrition that you need or we need. Therefore, we have to help people to take right decision. But the way you can do that is by learning to cook also vegetables in a palatable way. Now, the enemy is trying to destroy that even because he's using things that are tastier to make the vegetables tastier, but at the end still damaging to our bodies. For example, if we talk about BRAC aminos and we talk about soy sauce, both ingredients that are very harmful for our bodies, very well known and used in many of the cuisines, but that's not the way of cooking. You have to learn to make the food palatable. That's why we will take some time and we will do some cooking demos. We will teach you some of the recipes that will be beneficial for you, that will make your food palatable, and you will also benefit your family from the nutrition you can get from them. You still have to teach your children especially to have the power to control food instead of vice versa. When you cannot control food, then you don't have the power over those things. Now let's go to 2 verses so I can finish with this presentation. The number one is Proverbs 13:25. Proverbs 13:25. And it says, "The righteous eateth to the satisfying of his soul, but the belly of the wicked shall want." Very interesting verse. Very important one. Why? Because in here we see that God names the one that is wicked as which group? The one that the belly is wanting. Number one, God wants us to feel satisfied. He likes to see us happy. He wants us to enjoy food. He doesn't want us to be unhappy with food. He wants us to be happy, but He does not want that food will control us, that we should have control over food. There is another verse that I want to leave with you as you think more about this. You remember that we talk about babies and children being very fat, and we like to see them fat because we think that they have nutrition in them and they are big. I wonder if we have read Isaiah 58:11. What is the right fat according to God? Isaiah 58:11 says, "And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat," where? "Thy bones. And thou shalt be like a water garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not." Now let me put the difference. I may have 2 children, 1, 2, both same age. One is taller, bigger, but the weight is the same. How can a child, same age, different height and weight, and building of body, but same weight? Because the fat could be concentrated in the bones or concentrated in the skin. Fat in the skin is not the same as fat in the bones. Fat in the bones is measured by the scale. We cannot see it. But when your children have good fat in their bones, they will be heavy, solid, but they don't look fat. In a difference of the majority, the fat is in the skin. You see fat outside, but is it healthier? No. You can prove the health of the children by the weight, the height, but from the bones. So thank you so much for listening to this, and I hope you have learned something good in this presentation. We will continue with others in the next film. God bless you.
He's Coming Broadcasting Network.